Welcome back to another Java tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to cover methods. So a method has to be declared with a public, static, void, and then the method name, just as this is called. And if you open up make a new Java program, this is actually precisely what you would see. And this thing right here is a method. So to make a method, you have to have a public. We're not going to talk about what this publicly means right now. Static, again, we're not going to talk about what that means right now. And then a return type, which let's just call it void. And then the name of the method, which let's just call it method name. Okay. So, and then you have to end with these braces right here at the very end, just like with every other thing. So, yeah, so you want to have public, then you want to have static, and then the return type is crucial. This is never really going to be this. It's usually differs between methods. I'm going to tell you what that means in a second. And then you have the method name, which of course you could just make up your own thing as long as it's numbers. In here, we normally have parameters. So what a parameter is, they're basically variables that get set when you call a method. For instance, here, that's in a way we're not going to get in that right now, but I have int x in here. That means that if I call method name, which I call it with 5, that means that x is set to 5. And I have int x and then y, and what this basically does, int y. Now there's two variables in order to call it correctly. I have to have 2 integers because both values are an integer. So this would set 5 to x and 7 to y because they're in the same order. 5 is in the x spot and 7 is in the y spot. Of course, if this was a 7 and this is a 5, what would happen is that x would equal 7 and y would equal 5. That probably makes sense. The way what you do inside a method is basically you could just have your own code. Whenever hello, something like this. And now the crucial part is the return value. So you have return. Okay. If using's a void, that means it doesn't return anything. And what a void method would probably usually do is that it's gonna print something to the console. But if it does return something, there's 8. I believe there's 8 return types. 9 is probably 9, but there's string, which is a return type. Actually covered in the previous video. You should know what string is. Also, int. Remember, only string is capital because it's not primitive. There's also double, then boolean, and short, long, all those ones, and even a float. So let's say we have return type event, right? That means that when we have return, whatever we return has to be of int value. So we could just do return x plus y, for instance, and now I'll show you what this would actually do. Let me just remove those things. If we do method name right here, and we just have right here 5 and then 4, what this is going to do is that it's going to actually return 5 plus 4. That's what it's going to do. Of course, if this was a boolean, the return type would have to be a boolean, so it would have to be true or false. If it was float, it has to be a float. Remember an int, if it was int, it can't be 5.5 because 5.5 is not an integer, as we discussed in the last video. So yeah, that's basically how you use methods. It may sound a little bit scary at first, but it isn't actually that scary. There's one last thing I want to do before this video ends, and it's to talk about scope variables. So what a scope variable is the scope of a variable. Basically, let's say I would declare a variable right here, right? Int x equals 5, okay? Because this variable is declared inside this method, it can only be used inside this method with these parameters. If I were to actually for instance, just do then x equals then system dot out dot print x just will run an error. See, that's definitely gonna run an error. This video, yes, you cannot find symbol x. So yes, because this x is only allowed to be accessed in this method. However, if we were to declare a new variable right here named x, it would access this variable because this variable is in the same method. And because they can only be accessed in methods, you can't have something like this. This would also run an error because you don't know what x is. We don't have the x variable. So yeah, basically variables can only be declared. They can only be accessed if they're declared in that method. And there's also something called a field variable, which just declares something like this: int x equals 5. And now right here, this gets a little bit complicated. You don't have to. In this case, what you would do is that you would use the this dot x thing, but you don't have to know that right now. When you do print x, it's just going to print the field variable. So just this, because this is outside of every method. These are the two methods. So because it's outside of every method and it's inside the class, it's allowed to. It can be used in any method. It's called a field variable. And the second, actually, quick question. It's 5, and then we have. One last thing. In this case, in x equals 5, if there's two variables in the same name, of course, they can't have the same name, but because this is inside the method, it can, because it's only allowed in this method. So when you do this right here, it's gonna return 5 because it's gonna only use this. It's gonna use this variable. We have to actually call method name like that. So what to actually do anything, you see there's no errors for running. It's because it's gonna call that. So that's all you will have to know. I guess one last thing is that you can't have any system.out or anything like this. Any actual code outside these methods is gonna run an error. It's because you're never gonna actually be able to call this. You're never gonna actually be able to call this because the code that goes on can only be called in these methods. Same reason why you can't call a method in this in the ethor. That's why I like to call it, because it's outside all methods. And in case you know, the first method that runs when you click 1 is always going to be the main one, and from there it's going to take on other things, and these things outside any method are now can be called. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please consider liking, maybe sharing it to one of your friends, and please subscribe for more.